Hello AWS friends, in this tutorial about how to set up a CDK multi-branch or feature branch pipeline. I already have a video here in my channel how to set up a CDK pipeline, and there's also a GitHub repo about this. For this feature branch pipeline, you can check out this repo in my GitHub account. It will explain in the README all the steps. And also I will show you how it works and how to set up here in this video. But please be aware, you should have already an idea how the normal pipeline works, which you can see in the project, in the GitHub project for the CDK pipeline and in my video on the CDK pipeline. So I'm not going to explain this here in detail. Just to give you a short overview, so this pipeline working on just one branch, which you can define in the CDK JSON, is basically deploying CDK resources to your accounts, which can be various accounts like dev account, QA account, prod. It's supposed to be installed in a toolchain account, and as you can see, we have a checkout source. We have a sync step for the CDK and the update pipeline. And then we will deploy resources to our toolchain account, do Lambda test, unit tests, and then deploy resources to our dev stage. And after approval step, also to QA step. You can add here one more stage for prod, but the design for this pipeline is actually you deploy a second pipeline for your prod account, so you have better chance to give permissions more restricted to the prod pipeline. But now we want also to be able to deploy, for example, from a branch or a pull request, our resources that run the test we have defined in our normal pipeline: integration test, acceptance test, Lambda test, unit tests. And we want to see if also all these stacks are really deployable. So this is already a branch pipeline I have here created by creating a new branch. Let's see how this could work. So let's say I have created here a new branch, feature branch 23. I will do, let's say, a little switch here, a little change, and will by now commit this to my repo. And by now, what is going to happen? My pipeline generator will run and will create here a new pipeline, feature branch 23, as we have seen. And this will immediately run and go over all the Lambda test, the unit test, and the deployment. Also, I want to have a feature that when, for example, I merge and complete my branch, so this is the earlier branch I have created, branch 22. When I merge this and close the pull request, I want actually that the pipeline, this one here, the feature branch pipeline, is going to be deleted automatically. So this is by now in progress, but by now it was deleted from my GitHub account. Though to make this happen, what we need for of course is GitHub Actions. As you can see here, this was my GitHub action to create the feature branch pipeline 23, and here happened an action to delete feature branch pipeline 22, and these are defined here in this project in the GitHub Actions YAML. You can define here the events where you want to, for example, create a feature pipeline or delete one. For example, on the pull request close, I'm deleting a pipeline, and here on push, I'm on a branch, I'm creating the pipelines. Maybe you want to not create a pipeline on a push, on a branch. Maybe you want this only on a pull request, so then you have to adapt here the GitHub Actions. Anything is possible here. This is just my definition for this tutorial. Before I give you some steps how to set up this Feature Branch pipeline from my repo and adapt necessary files to get it working, short overview over the architecture. So you already got your normal CDK pipeline, right, which is deploying to your stage accounts and, for example, Lambdas or repos or whatever, S3 buckets, Elastic Beanstalk application target services. That's your pipeline which is running on your main branch. But by now you want to have a feature pipeline on certain branches, right, which are basically based on the same pipeline, but are configured to run, for example, on feature branch number 22. So to make this happen, as we have already seen, we need from the GitHub account GitHub Actions, or if you have a different repo like Bitbucket, you need the actions from there. Anyway, you must trigger the AWS account, the toolchain account, over an API, which is deployed here in my project, which will invoke a Lambda. And this Lambda will call the pipeline generator pipeline, which we have a look in a second, which will, based on a template pipeline, then create the feature branch pipeline for this branch, which was sent over the API here. And if you call the delete pipeline action for, if you close a pull request, then the Lambda will immediately delete this feature branch pipeline. So we can see here, this is the feature branch pipeline generator, which will actually deploy as a feature branch pipeline template, and also our Webhook API, the API to receive the actions from GitHub. So it's a simple pipeline, and we will see there is a pipeline template, which is basically a clone from our normal main pipeline, right? This one is not runnable because the branch is not defined. That's supposed to be this way. And these pipelines later on generated by our GitHub action are based on this, and the correct branch is set, and these will run. So we will see there's an API gateway, which is going to be deployed by the pipeline generator, which get a post method to receive the GitHub actions. This will invoke a Lambda. This is also deployed by the pipeline generator, which will then create pipelines or delete pipelines. It will also store our branch names in the parameter store and delete later on if you close the pull request. So once the pipeline generator gets triggered for a new branch and it finds, for example, already feature branch 22, it can skip this one here and can continue to, for example, create feature branch 24. Let's have a look in the CDK project for the feature branch pipeline, where you have to adapt some files once you have cloned the repo and want to set it up. So the first, of course, is the GitHub Actions. Once you have deployed the pipeline generator, you will have this API gateway, and in that stage you will find your DNS name, your URL for your Webhook API, and you have to replace this one here with your API gateway URL. You have to also adapt here the actions. As mentioned, you can change the behavior whenever do you want to have a branch pipeline created or closed. That's up to you. Then also important, of course, is the CDK JSON, where you have to enter your values. For example, I have defined here 4 accounts. There's a tuning account where the pipeline is going to run, and also maybe some common resources like common ECR repos can be deployed, or parameters for the other stages, which is the tuning account. And then I have 3 stages, dev, QA, and prod. You can define, for example, for your feature branch different account, so you probably don't want to your dev account deployed with a feature branch, so maybe you can just create here one more like dev feature and deploy your feature branch resources to a new account. You can, to make it running in a quick way, you can use here your same account IDs also for the 4 accounts for the 3 stages. Be aware, if you would deploy QA, then it will of course override the dev resource since it's the same one. But to get it working, it's fine. Try it out with one account and later on fix it for your multi-branch, multi-account environment. You have to insert here VPC ID from the tooling account, and you have to define your branch names, and you have to set up a connection in developer tools and enter the connection string. So this connection is defined in GitHub. You can go there to applications, and for your repo and for your general settings here, you can define the GitHub connector for AWS. There's also a secret in the toolchain account where you are able to enter here a secret for your GitHub account if it's secured. In my case, for this tutorial, I don't use it. So, but you have the chance to, of course, secure your Git repo and use this secret to access your repo. Let's have a look here in our project how to get started. So once you have adapted your CDK JSON with the correct values and did an AWS configure, you can do a CDK ls, and you will see, you will find all these stacks here in the CDK list command. Then you have to deploy your roles. So if you're, for example, deploying not to one account, if you really deploy to a different account for dev and another account for QA and a 4th account for prod, you will have to deploy these cross-account roles, which will allow your pipeline on the toolchain account to deploy on dev, QA, or prod. So if you set up this in a real multi-account environment and setup, please deploy these roles. And then you can go on and deploy your normal CDK pipeline, which is this one, the CDK pipeline multi-branch. Actually, I should name it CDK pipeline main branch. It's maybe right now not the perfect name. Don't get confused. This is a pipeline to be able to deploy your accounts on the main branch. So this is actually this pipeline here, right? Then the next step is to deploy the pipeline generator. We have seen the pipeline for the generator. It will deploy the pipeline template, and it will deploy also the GitHub Web API, which will create the API gateway and the Lambda and the stuff. So the other stacks you will see here, you don't have to execute on your command line. These are just inside the project, which will get deployed by your pipeline. Before you actually deploy the CDK pipeline multi-branch and the feature pipeline generator, don't forget to check in the changes in your CDK JSON to your repo, because of course the first thing these pipelines are going to do is check out your branch, your sources from GitHub. So if they're not up to date, the pipeline will fail. So once it gets here into the source stage, it should find the actually sized CDK JSON. And also, once you have run the feature branch pipeline generator, you will be able to get the API gateway URL from your API here. You can see this one, that the value you have to change in the GitHub Actions, and then you have to adapt the GitHub Actions and again push this to your repo, and then your GitHub should be able to execute here these workflows, and to trigger your API. So check out please these actions run without any errors. You can see the console output here and take a look if any problems occurred. Once you have done this, you should see your main branch pipeline. You should see the feature branch pipeline generator. And if this is done, you should see this template, which is in execution state failed, as mentioned, because the branch is not set here yet. You will not yet see a feature branch pipeline, because probably you don't have yet created a branch. And so the next step, once your GitHub action is configured correctly, you can create a new branch, 24 for example, and then once you have pushed or whatever how you have configured your GitHub actions, then you will see the pipeline generator running and creating your feature branch pipeline. And again, once you close the pull request, for example, defined on how is this one here configured, will then delete your pipeline. Let's have a short look on the Lambda, what it actually does to create or delete pipelines. Here in this project in infrastructure Lambda's GitHub Repo Python, you will find the Lambda which is responsible to create your feature branch pipelines or delete them. So you enter in here, you get the secret from the secret manager, and then you have to maybe change this a little bit depending on your configuration to access your GitHub repo. But then if you go in here, you see it will change, check the branch name if it's okay with some conventions. It will then check the SSM if it's already in the parameter store, and once not, it will go here and create a feature branch pipeline. So the else is the deletion of the pipeline. It will delete the pipeline and will also delete the branch, the parameter in parameter store. So that's basically the Lambda. Whenever you want a different behavior, go ahead and adapt here the Lambda code, and then you should be able to also extend new features here. So that's it basically. Please have a look in my repo, CDK code pipeline multi-branch. I have a README there, which will explain again the architecture and how to set up the project. I have also a blog which helps with some additional information on how to set up the pipeline, what it's doing actually, and give you some screenshots and help you setting up the pipeline. As mentioned, you can adapt the Lambda if you want a little different behavior. For sure you will have to adapt the GitHub actions and the CDK JSON to get it running. So please enjoy the multi and the feature branch pipeline and have fun setting them up for your feature teams. Thanks, and see you on the next video.